America in the Quran? No way. Well, wait a minute, I'm going to show you something. First, two riddles. Where is the Statue of Liberty situated? In London, in Paris, in Calcutta, or in New York City? I know you will tell me everybody knows that, but I bet that 90% will give the wrong answer, because this is not what you think. The second riddle is, who invented the blue jeans? The Jews, the French, or the Americans? Also here there's a surprise. Assalamu alaikum. The Quran speaks in Surah 27 An-Naml about a beast, an animal that is very special. Verse 82. And when the command is given to them, we will bring forth from the earth for them an animal that will tell them that people did not believe in our signs. God, and this is in the context of the Judgment Day, will bring forward a power from the earth. This power will speak to the people and it will bring them to a decision. Are they going to be faithful to God or not? The Hadith adds something about this beast coming from the earth. It will divide the people into two groups. It will distinguish between the believers and the non-believers, which is actually just a complement on what the text says at Naml 82. Unfortunately, the Quran doesn't give any more information about that. And we have seen in previous videos that very often the Quran mentions something without further explanations, but the Bible gives us explanations. Also here the Bible speaks about the beast coming from the earth, an animal, and that's in the book of Revelation. Let me read it, and we'll see that this text from the Bible helps us understand what the Quran says, or if you want, who is this beast coming from the earth. Revelation chapter 13, starting with verse 11. And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and it had two horns like a lamb, and it spoke like a dragon. And he exercised all the power of the first beast before him, and caused the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. And he doth great wonders, so that he makes fire come down from heaven on the earth in the signs of man, and deceived them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast, which had the wound by a sword and did live. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that the many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. Well, that's really complicated. I think we have to go step by step to explain all that. But let us maybe sum up what is said here. First, this animal comes from the earth, same like in the Quran. Secondly, it speaks to people, like in the Quran. The context of Revelation 13 is the Judgment Day. In chapter 14, verse 7, it said that angels announce the coming of the judgment in the near future, judgment of God, like in the Quran. But here we have some more information. First, it exercised the power of the first animal. In fact, in the beginning of chapter 13 of Revelation, we read about another animal. We're going to talk about this animal very soon, but let's first go through this description. It exercised all the power of the first beast. Second, it performs great wonders, miracles, makes even fire come down from heaven. Through the fire, it deceives the inhabitants of the earth. Then it causes people to worship the first beast by making an image to this beast, and those who do not worship this image will die or will not be able to buy and sell anymore. Let's talk a little bit about the first beast. At the beginning of chapter 13, the description we have here, and we're not going to read in details, but it matched exactly what we had in the previous video on the Antichrist. We made a video on who is Mesih Dajjal, the Antichrist, and I really recommend you to watch this video if you have not done it. In a nutshell, we have discovered that the Bible tells us exactly where and when the Antichrist would come from. First, it comes from the middle of the Roman Empire. It is said that the Roman Empire crashed through the oppression of the Germanic tribes. But the Catholic Church was able to submit all these powers by baptizing some of the kings, like Chlodwig, to Catholicism. From the beginning of the Middle Age, 538, when Justinian, the Roman Empire, gave its power to the Church, until 1798, the Church has decided who would be king and emperor in Europe. This is the political power of the Church. So the little horn comes from the middle of the Roman Empire, submits all the powers in Europe to her power. It's a religious power. The Bible said that we will blaspheme, and we have studied what the Bible understands with blaspheme. To blaspheme means to think that I am God, and that's exactly what the Church says when the Pope says, I am the representative of God on earth, I'm the Papa, the Father. And second, blasphemy is when somebody pretends to be able to forgive sins, and that's exactly what the Church pretends to do. The Church would persecute those who kept on believing in what the Bible says and not into the traditions. By the way, you will find several videos on my playlist about from the beginning of Christianity, you had two different groups of people, those who followed what the Bible says and those who followed what the Church said. And those who followed the Church would persecute the others, while those who remained faithful to God were protected by Muslims and other powers. Very interesting topics. What is important for us is that the Bible tells us this power will last for 3 years and a half. And we have not explained that in the previous video. I promised you to do this today, so I'm going to do that. First, we discovered that in the book of Revelation, we find this time frame of 3 years and a half, or 42 months, or 1,260 days several times. For example, in Revelation 11, it is said that the Gentiles will trample the holy city for 42 months. 42 months divided by 12 makes 3 years and a half. In the next verse, in verse 3, it is said that God's witness will have to prophesy clothed in sackcloth, which is a sign of grief, for 1,260 days. In the Jewish calendar, a month has 30 days and a year has 360 days, which means that those 42 months or 1,260 days are the same like 3 years and a half. What does this time frame mean? To explain this, we have to realize that in ancient languages, people didn't use numbers. They didn't have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but they used A, B, C, D, and so on. Some of us still know these Roman numbers that are so complicated, M for 1,000, C for 100, and so on. And especially if you want to express long periods or long numbers, it gets really difficult to read. By the way, we have something similar with the light years in astronomy. Instead of talking about billions and billions of miles or kilometers, we talk about shortening the time indication in light years. In the same way, in the Bible, we have a shortening of long time periods by talking about one day being 1 year. And that's not, by the way, something just in the Bible. We find this in the scrolls of Qumran and in other Jewish sources. In that case, could it be that the 1,260 days are 1,260 years? Now, if you calculate the time from the beginning of the political power of the church in 538 until the end of the political power in 1798, we have exactly 1,260 years. What happened in 538? The Roman Empire Justinian gave its power to the church. In 1798, the general of Napoleon's army comes to Rome and stops the power of the Catholic Church. And for 130 years, the church has no say on the European stage. Let me add here that when we talk about the Catholic Church, we don't talk about Catholic people. I'm convinced that there are many Catholic believers who are sincere and who are accepted by God in their sincerity. We are talking here about a system, okay? Just to precise. This indication of 1,260 years is repeated in the next chapters of Revelation. In chapter 12, it is said that the woman, who is a symbol for the church in the Bible, is persecuted and finds refuge in the desert. It's interesting that the country where the persecution of Protestants was the strongest, that was France. And the soldiers of King Louis XIV were called the dragons. And the place where the Protestants found refuge in southern France was and is still called the desert. Very interesting. And at that time, the Bible says that when the persecution got the worse, the earth opened itself and gave refuge to the persecuted Christians. And especially at that time when Louis XV absolutely forbade Protestantism in France, 1685. America opened its door to the persecuted Protestants, coming from different countries, especially from France, but also from England, Ireland, and so on. And this is where I can answer the riddles I gave at the beginning. The real Statue of Liberty, the original, is not in London, is not in Calcutta, it's in Paris. And when the Protestants came to New York City, as a sign of gratefulness to America who accepted them, they had this Statue of Liberty built that we know in the harbor of New York City. But the real one, the first one, the original one, is in Paris. The second riddle is, where do blue jeans come from? The blue jeans were the clothes Protestants in France used to wear before going to church. Blue jeans come from the French word bleu de Gênes. Genoa, is a city in Italy. It is the harbor where Marco Polo arrived from Afghanistan. And he brought that stone with him. That color, who made the color of Genoa, bleu de Gênes in French, the color of the blue jeans. When the French came to New York City as refugees, they brought the patent of the blue jeans from the city of Nîmes in southern France. That's why we talk about de Nîmes. And America produced that, but the origin is from France. Just for your information. If my interpretation is correct, that the desert is America, it would match with the fact that the first beast in Revelation 13 comes from the sea. And the sea, the water in the Bible, symbolizes many people, waves, unrest, wars. The first beast, the Catholic system, comes from the middle of inhabited countries of Europe. America, in the time of the Protestants, was almost empty. It was a kind of desert. And by the way, if we continue to read, or if we reread the description of the beast coming from the earth in Revelation, we see that this animal has two horns like a lamb. A lamb is a symbol for innocence, an animal that is extremely peaceful. Yes, America is the land of peace. It's the land of tolerance. The Constitution gives you all rights you want in political and religious expression. However, this animal also speaks like a dragon. And that's the interesting thing, that America can be very liberal and tolerant, at the same time persecuted, kills the Indians, the native Indians in America, or encourage for years and decades slavery from Africa. So this contradiction is well expressed in this animal with two horns like a lamb and speaks like a dragon. Then it brings fire on the earth, and it brings to the fire the whole world to do something. To do what? This will be the topic of our next presentation. But I want to show you how America has the power to convince the whole world. For example, with the power America has, the weapons. America has the say. I remember one day I was in Bishkek in Kyrgyzstan, not far from Afghanistan. And at the airport I saw these hundreds of big American airplanes ready to bomb Afghanistan. Each plane would cost hundreds of millions of dollars, and all of them would have enough power to destroy the whole planet. That shows the power of this country. And the Bible says it will bring the whole world to do what at the end? To worship the beast, the first beast. Again, we're going to explain that next time. But what is important for us is that everything has been given details. You will see next time how the Bible speaks about the image of the beast that is mentioned in the Quran, by the way, about the sign of the end time that separates the true followers of God with those who decide to follow wrong adoration. We'll talk about 666, the magic number, the mysterious number mentioned in Revelation 13 as well. But for today, it's important to know that God is in control. He has told us in the Quran and in the Bible about the future of the world before the judgment day. Two groups, those who believe, those who do not believe. But the Bible said that those who believe will be protected, as it happened in all centuries, and it's going to happen in the end time. Therefore, let us remain faithful to God, and I wish you God's blessing as you do this. Barakatullah lakum wa assalamu alaikum.